So how is this going to impact Harvard? Immensely. Almost a quarter, 25% of their enrollment is international students. And Secretary Noem pointed out that Harvard is very wealthy and that they will be fine without this tuition to, as she put it, pad their endowment. So I just want to make clear that tuition dollars don't go into endowments. Tuition money is used for things like student aid, student programs, payroll, paying staff, paying faculty, and so the loss of tuition is not going to hurt Harvard's endowment. It's going to hurt their ability to take care of the students, faculty, and staff that they have. Secretary Noem, either in her letter or in a recent statement, has said, I'm not quoting directly, but that Harvard is a hotbed of dissent, of anti-Semitism, and it somehow harbors future terrorists, perhaps. And so they're using that. This is why it's coming through Homeland Security and not another agency. They're saying that the international students at Harvard are somehow a threat to the security of the United States.
I mean, obviously, schools have had their SEVIS registration terminated, but it's usually for fraud or they just don't keep records. They've never done it for anything remotely like this, which basically is we don't like the fact that you're not listening to about who you should hire, so we're going to terminate it. That's what they did here. But perhaps this was not necessarily just about Harvard. This was a message to all of higher education that you have to come into line with the thinking of what this administration thinks higher education should be. We're going to see, clearly what we're going to see is a massive drop-off in foreign students coming to the United States starting in September. Well, I think a lot of the administration sees universities as a hotbed of liberals, progressives, people that are aligned against the principles of MAGA. And to them, it's a breeding ground. They see it as a breeding ground. So if you can disrupt the breeding ground, you won't have as many progressive, i.e. educated people who oppose the administration's nationalism and nativism. But what's also going to happen is the students and the researchers that have been coming to the United States since the end of World War II are now being courted by France. They're being courted by Germany. They're being courted by Canada. They're being courted by China. Hey, why go to the United States? Those people are crazy over there. We will fund your research in France. We will fund your research in China. Come here. Again, but overall, there's 1.2 million students in the United States. I mean, there's a lot of foreign students here, many of them keeping schools afloat. Not only do foreign students bring to the campus, university, this international interaction with American citizen students that are there, but they also provide massive funding because they all pay full tuition. So tuition will go up for U.S. citizens at almost every university if we didn't have foreign students. Will 100% go up. This is
another action that the administration is trying to take against Harvard is to revoke their tax exempt status, which again, based on their very large endowment, would cause Harvard to then owe a tremendous amount of money in taxes, again, hampering research.
But tax exempt status, I mean, it's a privilege. It's really a privilege. And it's been abused by a lot more than Harvard, too, by a lot more than Harvard. So we'll see how that all works out. I don't think
just the requests that they're making of Harvard and other universities, doing what are called viewpoint surveys on both faculty and students, trying to find out ideological beliefs, any sort of political activities. Those have not been seen in the United States for quite some time. Certainly during McCarthyism and the Red Scare, people were more inquisitive, to put it nicely, about people's political views and activities. But, McCarthy faced a tremendous amount of backlash, and for the rest of the Cold War and most of the 21st century, America has prided itself on freedom of speech, freedom of thought. And in a recent report, Harvard did admit that there's been a problem with anti-Semitism on their campus, and they are looking into ways to mitigate that. Of course, nobody wants anti-Semitism. There's no place for that in the United States. They've recently, I think the number is about 2.75 billion that they have immediately taken from Harvard. Harvard, of course, is requesting that they be allowed to keep those funds. Faculty at Harvard are very concerned, talking about how the revocation of that amount of funds, what that's going to do is essentially shut down some of their labs. We've talked about how universities in America are vital for all kinds of research, but particularly scientific research that leads to medical discoveries, advances in technology. And so revoking those funds without a very clear reason or without a very clear process is incredibly harmful to Harvard.
Billions of dollars has been paid to Harvard. How ridiculous is that? Billions.
U.S. President Donald Trump spoke on Friday after a U.S. judge temporarily blocked his administration from revoking Harvard University's ability to enroll foreign students.
Harvard's going to have to change its ways. And so are some others.
His comments came after an order that provides temporary relief to the thousands of international students who were faced with being forced to transfer, following the termination of Harvard's Student and Exchange Visitor Program certification, and after Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem accused the university without providing evidence of, quote, fostering violence, anti-Semitism, and coordinating with the Chinese Communist Party. The Ivy League school, which rejected the allegations, filed a lawsuit on Friday calling the revocation a blatant violation of the U.S. Constitution and other federal laws. Steve Tsang, the director of the SOAS China Institute, called the move by the current administration an attack on both Harvard and academic independence.
It means nearly a third of Harvard's students would suddenly face the question of whether they would be able to stay on at Harvard. And of course, the impact on Harvard's finance would be pretty devastating. The message was also sent that other academic institutions should look at Harvard and therefore behave, in quotation marks, in accordance with what the administration wishes. So you can't really have a more blatant assault on academic independence and academic integrity.
The judge blocked the policy for 2 weeks, saying Harvard had shown it could be harmed before there was an opportunity to hear the case in full. The Trump administration may appeal the ruling. Trump's pressure on Harvard is part of the Republican president's broader campaign to compel universities, law firms, news media, courts, and other institutions that value independence from partisan politics to align with his agenda. Harvard, based in Cambridge, Massachusetts, has pushed back hard against Trump, having previously sued to restore some $3 billion in federal grants that had been frozen or canceled.